It was a little girl's first flight, and I felt both excited and nervous. During the flight, we encountered a large flock of birds. The engines continued to run steadily. She noticed something unusual and hurriedly told her stepmother about it. But when all three of them turned to look out the window, the engine suddenly malfunctioned, and in the blink of an eye, a severe fire broke out. Grandfather immediately realized that danger was imminent. He quickly instructed the little girl to fasten her seatbelt. Then everyone held hands tightly and prayed that a tragedy would not occur. But in the next moment, the unexpected happened. Reports came in that parts of the plane were breaking off and piercing through the aircraft. Cracks spread rapidly, and the windows exploded outward. Passengers who were not wearing seatbelts were immediately sucked out. Even though everyone tried to hold her hand, it was too late. Soon, under the immense air pressure, all passengers sitting near the windows perished. Some desperately clung to their seats, but in the end, they were all pulled out. Suddenly, screams echoed throughout the cabin amid the sudden plane crash. Even the crew chief and the pilots were hopeless. The only thing we could do was entrust everything to all of you, curl our bodies, and try to control the impact as much as possible. The rest was left to fate. The plane plunged into the sea. After everything calmed down, no one could believe they were still alive, but I felt immense relief that we hadn't given up. As the plane's structure began to break apart, it slowly sank rapidly toward the ocean floor. Suddenly, seawater rushed into the cabin like a wild beast. The sight terrified everyone. If the situation continued, death awaited them. However, just as everyone was losing hope, the plane abruptly stopped sinking. It turned out that a mountain lay beneath them. And even more fortunately, the incoming seawater was compressed at the rear of the plane, creating an air pressure that prevented more water from entering. The little girl and her grandmother survived for the moment. Even though they had temporarily escaped danger, no one knew how long the cabin's internal structure could hold until the rescue team arrived. At that moment, the grandmother realized that a nearby passenger was holding an oxygen tank. Upon hearing this, a stout man immediately sprang into action without hesitation. Understanding that this was everyone's only hope for survival, without delay, he jumped into the water, heading toward another cabin to retrieve the oxygen tank. What he didn't know was that a dark shadow outside the window was creeping closer. Soon, the stout man found the oxygen tank, and on his way back, he carefully scanned the plane's gaps. But in the next moment, something incredibly heavy waited beneath the surface. Waves splashed violently, and no one saw the man's body again. Everyone felt terrified and heartbroken, until, shortly after, the stout man resurfaced. A woman tried to help him, but he stopped her, enduring extreme pain. He lifted the oxygen tank and placed it on a seat, and in the next moment, after the stout man disappeared, only the tail of a dolphin floated on the surface, revealing the grim fate of the man. I could do nothing, but I felt a pang of sorrow for myself. For a moment, everyone's hearts raced violently, as if leaping into their throats, trying desperately to stay calm. Everyone had to hide in the small kitchen area of the plane. Meanwhile, the dolphin inside the cabin continued to feed on the remains of his companion passenger. Outside the cabin, a large group of people watched with fascination. They wanted to break away, but at this critical moment, the plane began to slide again, almost plummeting into the unfathomable depths of the sea. Fortunately, it finally stopped due to freezing. However, because of the tilt of the plane, the water level inside the cabin continued to rise. Everyone realized that this fragile moment still held a small, uncertain hope. The plane could sink any time, and they had to find a way to save themselves first. Suddenly, the little girl pointed at the window in astonishment. Two diving rescue helpers had arrived. In that moment, everyone saw hope. They shouted and waved at the rescuers, believing that finally they would be saved. But I did not anticipate that at that very moment, the girl's expression changed instantly. Behind the rescuers, a dolphin was heading straight toward them. The rescue helper, noticing something unusual, turned to look but found nothing out of the ordinary. He nodded in agreement. Yet I could not have anticipated what would happen in the very next moment. Here's the English translation of your sentence. As everyone looked out the window in fear once again, the sea fell eerily silent. Such actions put the rescue helpers' lives at risk as well. Moans and struggles echoed above my head. Suddenly, everyone's hope began to fade even more. I felt deep sorrow for the suffering of the rescuers. They were terrified of their own peril. After everything settled for a moment, everyone returned to the cabin to check on the other rescuers. It was clear that the helpers had gone to an empty area, but everyone had been waiting in the cabin for a long time. However, the group of rescuers never appeared, and the oxygen in the cabin was steadily running low. The girl said that no matter who the rescuers were, their current condition was crucial. The oxygen tanks they carried were vital for everyone's survival. Without hesitation, she dove into the water, carefully checking whether the rescuers were inside the cabin. But after diving down, I saw that the seawater was murky, obscuring everything. Nothing ahead was clear. With no other choice, she gathered her courage and moved forward cautiously. Finally, the rescuer was found, and fortunately, the dolphin was not there. However, when he announced the good news, one of the girl's male friends became overly excited. I accidentally fell into the water. The loud noise quickly attracted the dolphin. Seeing this, everyone immediately recognized the danger. The girl rushed to reach out and pull the man up, but by that time, it was already too late. Through everyone's combined efforts, the man ultimately survived, though the dolphin still had half his leg in its grip. Blood flowed like a spring. The little girl's grandmother stepped into the dire situation. She said she was a surgeon, then immediately removed her seatbelt and used it to tie around the man's leg. Although this had temporarily stopped the bleeding, the wound was severe and required urgent treatment. If left untreated, he would soon die. Meanwhile, the surviving flight attendant remembered that when boarding, one of the passengers was a swimming instructor. There might be useful items in other passengers' bags. He glanced frequently at my companion. Without hesitation, the girl, following the flight attendant's advice, dove straight into the storage compartment. Before long, she found a passenger's bag. What excited everyone even more was that when the bag was opened, it contained 4 sets of diving equipment. Now, everyone had hope. However, just as the girl was about to share the good news, I realized that her male friend showed no sign of life. Before she could feel sorrow, the nose of the plane crack open again. When the nose section opened, it began to slide toward the ocean floor. The water level in the cabin rose so quickly that it was visible to the naked eye. There was no more time to hesitate. Even the slightest delay could extinguish hope, but diving into the water was highly risky due to the dolphins. The girl remembered a funny story from her childhood. The book had said that dolphins fear air bubbles and will flee. Then, using a life tube, one could create bubbles for safety. So the dolphins swam away quickly, and people could swim toward the rescuers with oxygen tanks without waiting for anyone. The girl took out the diving equipment and asked everyone to use it. I didn't think about what my grandmother had said. I had liked swimming since childhood and was strong against currents. Wearing diving gear affected the body, so I took all 4 sets immediately. The diving gear was distributed to everyone. The old Chinese woman didn't overthink it. She walked toward the sea with the little girl. Ross is not human. What can I do for them? Then I will slow you down. Do you remember that we once went to the zoo and you wanted Cheetah to be in front and me to be behind, and then looking back at it? To make it like that, now Cheetah is not here. She should know that you were confused. Don't believe it. Unexpectedly, my grandmother had just finished speaking when the chicken's head was smashed and fell to the bottom of the sea. Everyone in the nearby cabin was swallowed by the seawater. 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, there was pride in you, but the result was as expected. Immediately after they sank into water, a blue fish surged in with fierce eyes. The girl pulled the rope quickly, creating many air bubbles. I couldn't believe that the blue fish would be that scared. At the same time, 2 others went down into the water, but when looking, everyone drifted apart. The foreigner stood still. He took off his glasses and held tightly only the memento of his wife in his hand. There was determination in his eyes. Now he seemed dead without regret, only with hope. Take care of Rosa. On the other side, someone had just begun sinking into the water. The bald man with long hair was terrified beyond measure. I didn't dare swim any further. Nevertheless, he stood up, took a deep breath, and cried out in fear. Unexpectedly, this movement quickly attracted the attention of a clever fish. Its confusion eventually caused it to lose its wary instincts. Seeing this, the flight attendants were desperate. I had no choice but to let it go and continue swimming forward. Meanwhile, the girls successfully found a life preserver for the little girl. After replenishing oxygen, they realized only 3 people remained. There was no time to grieve. They swam quickly toward the shore. Looking at the water surface above, the girl immediately put the life vest on the little girl. Seeing both rise quickly, she breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to go again. But I didn't expect that at that moment. The shark lunged at him violently. There was no time to put on a life vest. Escape was impossible. The girl simply took a deep breath, stood still, and watched as the shark opened its mouth and slowly approached. She was terrified, but fortunately, her calmness saved her, causing the shark to lose its aggressive instincts and swim away. Yet, I didn't anticipate that the second assistant swam toward him. There was no way to save me. The girl could have reached the shark first, but now, the plane was uncontrollable. It began to plunge rapidly toward the seabed. The tremendous force pulled him, his body uncontrollable. He began to drift into the cockpit, nearly falling to the deepest point of the plane. He grasped a chair in desperation. A strong determination to survive kept him from falling. Finally, he was able to emerge before hitting the seabed. Then he pulled out the life vest, spread his arms, and tried to swim upward. In the end, relying on her determination and courage, the girl successfully survived the deepest point. That was everything. The entire plane was filled with Pepsi joy. In the end, only 3 people survived.